So Dying Light 2 on the Steam Deck OLED, I was really not expecting this. The built-in frame generation is actually broken. It runs worse than having no frame gen at all. But with Lossless Scaling, you're getting a near perfect 60 FPS. And here's the part that really got me. It actually gives you an extra hour of battery life on top of it running at 60 FPS. 3.5 hours on a game like this. So we're gonna break it all down, go through the benchmarks, and I'm going to show you the exact settings I settled on to get the best experience on the Steam Deck. Alright, hi everyone, welcome back. So this is Dying Light 2 in February 2026. The game came out back in 2022, but it's still getting updates and seasonal events, and the developers were kind enough to provide me with a key for this one. I actually skipped this game when it launched. I'm a big fan of the original Dying Light. I played Dying Light the Beast, but Dying Light 2 had a different protagonist and it just didn't grab me at the time. It's had a lot of updates since though, so I wanted to give it a proper look and do a full performance breakdown on the Steam Deck OLED and see where it stands right now, and honestly I was pleasantly surprised. Before we get into the benchmarks, I just want to give you a quick sense of what this game actually feels like on the Steam Deck. It's an open world parkour survival game. You're running across rooftops, fighting off hordes of zombies, and the world is pretty dense. So going in, I was expecting performance to be rough, especially outdoors, but on a custom settings mix, mostly low with a few settings bumped to medium and high, the game sits comfortably above 40 FPS, often in the mid 40s, and it actually looks pretty good on that OLED screen. Indoors and in early sections of the game, you're regularly hitting 55 to 60 FPS without any frame generation at all, and when you get outside into the open world, it drops, but not as dramatically as I expected it to. The worst I saw was around 30 FPS in a busy NPC hub. Most of the time outdoors, you're sitting at 45 to 50, even in the hectic combat sections with a lot of enemies on screen, it stays pretty stable. The parkour system translates surprisingly well to the Steam Deck controls, and one thing I'd recommend straight away, bumping the FOV from the default. The default one is a little too close for a game this chaotic, and you want to see more around you and what's coming at you. A controller support is full, it feels pretty good, and this is genuinely a fun game to play on the Steam Deck. Okay, so jumping into benchmarks, the first one is FSR versus XeSS. The game gives you both options when you're running on X12, and you do want DirectX 12 because that's what unlocks FSR 3.1.5 and frame generation. I wanted to compare these head to head because on paper they're doing the same job, but in practice there's a clear winner. In terms of raw FPS, they're virtually identical. They're both sitting around 40 to 45 FPS, so no difference in the actual FPS. But with XeSS, you're getting pretty noticeable ghosting around moving objects, zombies running at you, swinging your weapon. You see this trailing effect that's pretty distracting once you notice it. With FSR, that's just not there. And usually with FSR you get shimmer on fine details, but with this particular game I really couldn't notice it, so FSR is the clear preference here. I did try forcing FSR 4 and 4.1 with a file swap, but it doesn't work cleanly. You do need OptiScaler on this title, so we're not gonna go into that. We're sticking with FSR 3.1.5 for now. Now this next benchmark is an interesting one. 3 scenarios, no frame gen, the built-in FSR frame gen, and lossless scaling frame gen. On the left, no frame gen on the lowest settings, baseline sitting around 45 to 50 FPS. In the middle, the built-in FSR frame generation, and this is what I mentioned at the start, it's actually performing worse than no frame generation at all. I ran this multiple times to make sure it wasn't a fluke. I limited my FPS, I limited my GPU, clock speed, so something is just not right with the implementation. Whether it's a Proton issue or something on the game side, I'm not sure, but I would not use it, I would avoid it. And on the far right, lossless scaling. This is where the things get really good because we're working from a solid 40 to 50 FPS base. Lossless scaling is doing a really clean job pushing us to 60. Very little input lag, barely any artifacting in normal gameplay. This is how I've been running the game and it feels genuinely very smooth. And then the battery life thing I mentioned at the start, without lossless scaling you're looking at around 2 hours and 30 minutes on the OLED, and with it you're getting roughly 3.5 hours, about an hour more. For a game like this, that's a big deal. It also gives you a little headroom to push shadow quality up slightly, which is a nice bonus. Now, this is surprising because I've tested a lot of games with lossless scaling and we've never really had that big of a jump in battery life when using lossless scaling, so this was really surprising to me. There are some artifacts to be aware of when using lossless scaling. Weapon swings have some warping, and the radar bar at the top can get a bit jumbled. I'm running this at 2 times frame generation at 89%, and I think that's the sweet spot, but those artifacts are just the nature of lossless scaling and something you have to decide if you can live with. For me personally, the smoothness it provides is worth it. The benchmark tree, we have low versus medium versus high presets. On low, you're sitting in the 45 to mid 50s, very consistent, very playable. On medium, you're still above 40 most of the time, but you start seeing occasional dips, not terrible, but not reliable either. And on high, you're going to drop below 40 regularly. If you're happy capping the game at 30 FPS, you can absolutely run high settings and holds up just fine. It does look noticeably better. But if you want a smooth 40 to 45 FPS experience, a high preset is just not going to cut it. This is why I'm on a custom mix rather than using any of the presets. You get most of the visual quality of medium with a consistency of low, and I'm going to give you the exact settings right now. For color grading, I've set this to Haran Sunset. This is a preference. The original one is just a little bit too green, bluish for me. Haran Sunset is actually make it look like the original game, which is pretty cool. 800p resolution, VSync, you can keep that on or you can turn it off. For upscaling, we're using FSR. I think it's better than XeSS. XeSS introduces a lot of ghosting, and that's set to balanced, and it's FSR 3.1.5. Initially, you might not see this available, but I'll show you how to get it working. We're not using frame generation. Again, it's not running great. I showed in the benchmark, latency reduction of chromatic aberration and field grain effect. These are your personal preference. You can turn them on or off. It's not going to have that big of an impact on performance. And the field of view, I've set that to 60. Originally, it's 55, but it's a bit too narrow, so I bumped it up just a little bit. If you press X, you can go into advanced settings, and here I have this set to DirectX 12. So you can either choose DirectX 11, DirectX 12. DirectX 12 is a little bit more taxing on the system. However, it does enable FSR 3.1.5. So that's how you can get that version of FSR. And you have to turn this on, asynchronous compute. With this on, it makes it almost the same performance as you would have with DX11, and DX12 is just more stable. So if you use DX12 and this option, you should have a pretty good time. Texture quality, LOD quality, we're going to set that to high, and LOD range multiplier, we're going to set that to 100. Anti-aliasing, I've chosen to go with stable instead of sharp. For particles quality, we can set that to medium. Sun shadows quality low. Contact shadows, ambient occlusion, those are going to be none. Global illumination quality, going to have to set that to low. This is very taxing on the system. Usually GI is very performance heavy. So I'm going to have to set that to low. Reflection quality low. Ray traced flashlight off. Fog quality low. Post-processing quality low. And these three, glow, light streaks, and lens flare, these are kind of a preference. They don't have that big of an impact on the performance, but I have turned those off. With this setup, you should expect to see between 40 and 45 FPS in almost any scenario, even when there's a lot of enemies on screen, even there's a lot of combat. This really enables us to, like, the two biggest factors when it comes to visual quality, texture quality, and LUT quality. We can set these too high and get away with it. I wish we could go with a little bit more shadow detail, but unfortunately, if you do bump these up, you're gonna drop below 40 in some occasions. What you can do is you can bump these to medium and these to low. If you use lossless scaling, you should have it pretty stable, mostly at 60. But if you don't use lossless scaling, this is the best option. So Dying Light 2 on the Steam Deck OLED in 2026, better than I expected. Genuinely, if you use my settings and whether you use lossless scaling or not, you're gonna get a smooth experience with 3.5 hours of battery life with lossless scaling, 2.5 hours without it, and a game that looks really good on the OLED display. If you skipped it like I did when it launched, I think it's worth a second look. It goes on sale pretty regularly, and there's a lot of content in the game right now. So that's gonna be it for this one. If you found it helpful, consider leaving a like. And if you want to see more Steam Deck performance content, reviews, and everything covering the platform, consider subscribing, join the Steam group, and follow the Steam Flow curator page where I share all my reviews. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.